What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel, JenksTCG. Today we're going to be taking a look at ADP Decidueye in that post-rotation format. This deck is pretty cool. It came out of that top 8 from the Hegster TCG events. If you don't know what those are, I'll post a link to Hegster's Discord in the description so that you can go and play in some tournaments to get some packs and some Hegster invitational points. So shout out to Hegster for running events during this Play Pokemon downtime. And with that all being said, let's take a look at one of the decks that ended up doing well in the top 8, ADP Decidueye. Let's get into it. You thought you'd get the deck list that easy. 64.7% of viewers aren't subscribed. Subscribe to continue. Alright, now that you've subscribed, let's get into the video. Alright guys, here is the deck list for ADP Decidueye. This deck was piloted by Armando Cervantes, so I wanted to give him full credit for the list. I didn't change anything about it, and yeah, let's get into his masterpiece of a deck that he used to get top 8 at the Hegster TCG Season 2. I'm not really sure what the title of the tournament was, but he top 8'd an event with it. And yeah, the deck is really cool. It takes Decidueye, so you have all those auto wins against certain decks because you block VMAX or VMAX and GX Pokemon, and then anything that you might struggle with, you can use ADP to kind of counteract that whole thing of anything that can hit through the Decidueye. So things like Duraludon, you can just knock out with the ADP, you take extra prizes, and overall it's a pretty strong list. I didn't really see anything that I wanted to change off the bat. I streamed this a little bit, as well as my weird Decidueye Walls deck that I wasn't 100% confident in posting yet, but we stream over at JenksTCG on Twitch. I'm starting to stream at like 12 a.m. on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so we did cover this deck a little bit over there, and I just didn't see anything that I wanted to change it off the bat. So let's get into the list. You guys know what this card is: ADP-GX, the controversial card right now, as well as Boss's Order. Ultra Creation GX for a metal and a water energy, gonna give your opponents your Pokemon 30 more damage for the rest of the game and take additional prize cards. A crazy GX attack, 280 HP dragon Pokemon, and it has that attack Ultimate Ray for water, metal, and a colorless. It's going to do 150, and then search your deck for 3 basic energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you'd like. Then we got some boys, we got some Rowlets, we got some Dartrix, just so that we can get enough Pokemon in play so that we can eventually get to Decidueye with that Deep Forest camo. And like I said earlier, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks of V and GX Pokemon. So that includes VMAX as well, for if you didn't know. So 140 HP Grass Stage 2. Splitting Arrow is actually a pretty decent attack for Grass colorless. It does 90, and then 20 to 2 of the opponent's bench Pokemon. With Ultra Creation, that's going to hit 120, so not a bad number either. And overall, this card is super crazy and hard to deal with. A lot of people don't like this card because it's one of those cards that if you don't have an answer to, you just kind of lose. But when pairing it with ADP, you now have an out to anything that actually can get through Decidueye. So what I've found is, if you know, with a lot of the tournaments being open deck lists, you can kind of figure out if your Decidueye is going to just automatically win the game or not. So you can play the game by just automatically winning with Decidueye by just rare candying it out, then your opponent has no answers. But if they do have an answer, you can use ADP, you can sit there, you can go attach, Ultra Creation GX, and then you can attack with the ADP because it's unlikely that it gets knocked out, and then you can transition into Decidueye, and then you have a better chance of dealing with those Pokemon that can get through Decidueye now that you're taking extra prizes and doing extra damage. So that's it for the Pokemon. It's very simple. There's no draw Pokemon. It's literally just 2 ADP and then a 4-1-3 Decidueye line. As for the rest of the deck list, it focuses on a greens engine, so it's going to be pretty consistent actually, and overall a very solid deck. So let's get into some of the trainers. We have 2 copies of Energy Spinner. This is just so that you can greens and then find any energy you'd like. The deck does play water, grass, and metal energy. So Energy Spinner gonna go ahead and grab any of those. And this basically allows it so that you can set up Ultra Creation, or you can attack with Decidueye, and it gives you that flexibility. 4 copies of Pokégear. Like I said, there's no draw Pokemon in this deck, so it does make sense that the Pokégear count would be maxed out. Just give you the opportunity to find greens or anything else. Rosa is also in the deck too, so if you're just playing the lone Rowlet or the lone Decidueye strategy, that also works. Then we have 4 copies of Quick Ball for consistency, just so you can get out your Pokemon and set up. We got 3 copies of Rare Candy, so you can get into that Decidueye as fast as possible. There's no real reason to play 4 since we have the ADP package, and Rosa is quite good at finding Decidueye. And if you're getting Decidueye out, it's unlikely they actually have an answer, so I don't think there's actually any need for 4. And it just allows you to get space somewhere else. 1 copy of Reset Stamp. This deck might not actually need to play this, but I do like playing comeback potential cards, so I do think it's a fine inclusion. And Reset Stamp, if your opponent, you just match their opponent's hand with their prizes, shuffle it in, draw it equal to that, whatever. So overall, I like the card in here. Is it necessary? Probably not. One copy of Switch. One copy of Switch is always good. It just gives you some versatility. You can switch from the ADP to the Decidueye instead of manually retreating, or vice versa. So overall, not a bad inclusion. 3 copies of Tag Call. There are all 3 tag supporters that are kind of incorporated in the Tag Call engine in this deck, so it makes sense to play high count of these. It also searches ADP, so you can search out ADP and Guzma Hala, and then basically set up your boards just needing that one attachment in order to go ahead and GX. We got 2 copies of Turffield Stadium. This is just going to give you more consistency. It searches out Decidueyes and Dartrix's for just the stadium in play, and overall it's pretty good. It's a counter stadium, and there's not a whole lot much more to say about that. We got 2 bosses order. This is going to be good for taking out Dedenes and stuff, or just finding threats and knocking them out before they become a problem, or you can close out the game with ADP, you know, Ultimate Ray onto something and take those prize cards that way. We got 3 copies of Cynthia and Caitlin. This is going to be super important. Not only is it going to draw you cards, but it also gets back greens, gets back Guzma Hala, it gets back Mallow Lana, Marnie. So you can get back all these types of supporters, and I would imagine the main supporter that I want to get back is Mallow Lana, maybe even Marnie, since there isn't that much hand disruption in the deck, just the 1 copy of Marnie. But yeah, Cynthia and Caitlin is going to be really good for getting back those supporters. We got 4 copies of Green's Exploration. Obviously, this card is not going to work past getting the Decidueye into play, because the Green's only works when there's no abilities in play. But this is a great setup card. It is in our Decidueye Walls deck, and it made the deck flow a lot better than when it didn't have Greens. So I think that Greens is actually a really good inclusion in this deck too. Guzma Hala, discard 2 cards from your hand, search your deck for a tool, a special energy, and a stadium card. So this is really good. It's going to get you out that Turffield Stadium. It's going to get you out Weak Guard Energy or Aurora Energy and the Big Charm, and it can get you set up. It's really cool because against Volcanion, you can use Decidueye and Guzma Hala. You go and grab the Weak Guard Energy so they can't one-shot the Decidueye. Then you can take extra prizes with the ADP, and you can knock the Volcanion out. And then you have Big Charm. So overall, the Guzma Hala is really good for just finding all the cards that you would want. Then kind of with that Volcanion strategy, you have Mallow and Lana, so this is going to allow you to go between your Decidueyes when playing against a Pokemon that can actually get through the Decidueye. And if they can't one-shot it, you can Mallow and Lana erase their turn, and then if you're dealing extra damage, you're likely going to get through that Pokemon anyways. So Mallow and Lana, very good to just reset the board state. 1 copy of Marnie, just hand disruption, not much to say there. With Cynthia and Caitlin, you can use it more than once, so that, I guess that makes sense why there's 1 stamp and 1 Marnie. Then we have 1 copy of Research. I think that because the other engine in the deck, which is the Greens and the Tag Call engine, is so thick, there's not a whole lot of point to having more Research. I could even see 0 Research, but I think I understand why it's in the deck, just so that you can find it, discard 7, get a fresh hand. It's just another consistency out that's in the deck. Then rounding out the supporters, we have 3 copies of Rosa. Rosa is obviously very good with these stage 2 Pokemon like Obstagoon, Decidueye, because it grabs a Pokemon, a trainer card, and an energy, which usually means Decidueye Rare Candy Energy or Obstagoon Candied Energy. And if you already have Candy, you can find a different piece of the puzzle in your deck, and obviously Rosa only works on the fact that it gets triggered when a Pokemon is knocked out. So Rosa is going to be super good for these stage 2 stall decks kind of thing. Then we have 2 copies of Big Charm rounding out the list. As I mentioned earlier, this is going to be helpful against stuff like Duraludon that has the ADP-GX from their side, because this is going to prevent the 140 from actually KOing you, since the Decidueye will have 170. Also can make your ADP bigger, give it 310 HP. So overall, Big Charm seems like a really good tool to have in this deck, and it's searchable through Guzma Hala. Then rounding out the list with the energy, we have 3 copies of Aurora Energy. This is just so that you have the option to attach the energy anywhere and it won't actually matter. So on Decidueye it can be a grass, on ADP it can be a water or a metal, and it just fulfills all of those roles. Then we have 2 copies of Weak Guard Energy. This is just going to prevent the weakness, mainly for these fire decks that can hit the Decidueye for weakness. We have 3 copies of Grass Energy just for Decidueye. We have 3 copies of Metal Energy and 2 copies of Water Energy just for ADP. So overall, your goal is to Ultra Creation against stuff that you can't automatically beat, and then you can use Ultimate Ray, or you can switch into Decidueye and just still start doing damage that way. Or if you already auto-win a deck, just go ahead and Candy into Decidueye, get some free wins. So that's going to round out the list. Once again, shout out to Armando from the JenksTCG event for playing this deck. It's a really cool deck, so shout out to him. And yeah, if you guys like the content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Help get that engagement up. I will see you all in the next video. Have a good one.